Have you ever wondered, why do people only start to miss you once you're gone? Why does your silence echo louder than all your efforts ever did? At some point in life, you've probably felt it. The moment you stop replying quickly. The moment you stop being the first one to call, to help, to care. Suddenly, everything changes. People who once leaned on you daily drift away. Those who took you for granted now act confused, and some even accuse you of being distant, selfish, or cold. But here's the truth. Nobody tells you you didn't change, they just got used to the version of you that always gave without asking. Carl Jung, one of the most influential thinkers in psychology, believed that the self is sacred, and constantly giving away parts of yourself to everyone else is a betrayal of the person you're meant to become. He once wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Why terrifying? Because when you accept yourself, you stop begging others to accept you. You stop bending over backwards to stay in someone's life. You stop being available for people who are never really there for you, and that's when things start shifting. Your absence begins to say more than your presence ever could. The silence forces people to face something uncomfortable. They were never truly valuing you, just your availability. You see, being available all the time might make you feel useful, but in reality, it teaches people that your time is cheap, that your energy is limitless, that you'll always be there no matter how little they show up for you. And when you finally pull back, when you start setting boundaries, the illusion breaks. That's when people start showing their real faces. Some will distance themselves because they can no longer use you. Others will complain because they're addicted to the version of you that gave them everything. But a rare few will finally recognize your worth. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about ego. It's about value. Carl Jung believed deeply in the journey of the self, that every person must break away from the roles they've been playing to find out who they really are. And guess what? That journey begins the moment you stop being available to everyone but yourself. In this video, we're going to dive deeper into Jung's philosophy, understand how the human psyche reacts to detachment, and why your greatest power might just be in your withdrawal. Because when you stop being so easy to reach, the world is forced to feel your absence. And in that absence, you find your strength. Carl Jung wasn't just a psychiatrist. He was a soul searcher, someone who believed that beneath every smile, every gesture, every mask, there's a deeper truth waiting to be discovered. Jung's work focused on understanding the psyche, the full picture of who we are inside, and he believed most of us are not living as our true selves. We're performing. We perform roles: the good friend, the loyal partner, the dependable coworker, always present, always available. But Jung warned us, when you always make yourself available to others, especially at the cost of your own needs, you're not helping them grow, you're helping them avoid. He called this process projection. In Jungian psychology, projection is when people unconsciously throw parts of themselves onto others. In simple terms, they don't want to deal with their own pain, fear, or emptiness, so they attach it to someone else, often someone who's always there. That someone is usually you. You become the emotional sponge, you become the fixer, the comforter, the one who listens at 2 a.m., the one who drops everything just to be there. At first, it feels good. You feel needed, important, even loved, but slowly, a strange emptiness creeps in, because what you're offering isn't being returned. You're being drained, but you're not being seen. And that, Jung would say, is the danger of being too available. You're not being loved for who you are. You're being used as a mirror for other people's missing pieces. Jung also introduced the idea of the persona, the mask we wear in public, the role we play to fit in. But when your whole identity becomes about being helpful, agreeable, available, you lose touch with your true self. Behind the persona, there may be anger, resentment, exhaustion. But we keep smiling, we keep showing up. Why? Because we're afraid. Afraid that if we stop being available, we'll be forgotten. Afraid that if we say no, we'll stop being loved. But Carl Jung insisted on the opposite. He believed that real love, real connection, begins when we take off the mask, when we dare to say, "I need time for myself," when we risk being misunderstood in order to be honest. Jung's ultimate goal for every human being was a process he called individuation. It's the journey of becoming whole, of uniting the many fragments inside us into a complete, authentic self. But here's the thing. You cannot individuate. You cannot grow into your fullest self. If you're constantly pouring your time and energy into everyone else, you must retreat. You must reflect. You must create space emotionally, mentally, spiritually, where you are the priority. Because availability is not the same as love. Being needed is not the same as being respected. And Jung knew when you stop being so available to others, you finally become available to yourself. Pulling back. Remember this, you are not abandoning anyone. You are simply refusing to abandon yourself. Carl Jung believed that inner peace begins when you stop betraying your own soul just to keep everyone else comfortable. And in a world obsessed with connection, sometimes the most radical thing you can do is disconnect. Let's be honest, you've been there before. You gave everything, your time, your energy, your loyalty to people who barely gave anything back. You were always one call away, one text away, always ready to help. And yet, the moment you needed someone, silence. No one shows up the way you did. No one checks in. No one notices your tired eyes, your fading smile, your heavy heart. And slowly, a painful truth begins to surface. They've started to take you for granted. Why does this happen? Carl Jung didn't just explore the spiritual side of human nature. He understood patterns of behavior. He knew that when something becomes too easy to access, it loses its perceived value. Think about it. We crave what we can't have. We admire the things that are rare, distant, mysterious, but the moment something or someone is always there, always ready, always saying yes, we stop appreciating it, we stop seeing the effort behind it, we stop respecting the sacrifice, we start expecting it as if it's owed to us. And that's the trap. The more you give without boundaries, the more people assume you have no limits, and the more they assume that, the less they think about how their actions affect you. You may have been called the nice one, the reliable friend, the forgiving sibling, the understanding partner. But often, nice is code for you'll tolerate anything and still stay. And so they stop trying. They stop saying thank you, they stop checking in on you, because deep down, they believe you're not going anywhere. And maybe until now, you weren't. But Carl Jung would ask you this. Is it truly love if it's only there when you're useful? Because if your presence is only valued when it benefits someone else, that's not connection, that's convenience. Being emotionally available is a beautiful thing, but being constantly available without receiving the same energy in return leads to something Jung warned us about: emotional burnout. It's not just tiredness, it's a quiet erosion of the soul. You stop feeling joy in being there for others, you start feeling resentment, and worst of all, you begin to question your own worth. But remember this, your worth has never depended on how much you can give. It has always rested in who you are, even when you give nothing at all. So when people start taking you for granted, that's not a sign to give more. It's a sign to step back, not to punish them, but to protect yourself. Because Carl Jung believed that our inner wounds are often self-inflicted, not by what others do to us, but by what we allow in silence. And when you stop allowing the world to drain you, you start giving yourself something far more powerful: peace. So if you've ever felt like your kindness is being exploited, if your presence is treated like background noise, maybe it's time to stop showing up for people who never notice when you're gone, because when you remove yourself, you don't lose anything. You simply make space for those who truly see you. And as Jung would say, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Sometimes, the first step to waking up is walking away. There's a quiet kind of power that most people never discover, not in shouting, not in arguing, not in proving yourself to those who don't see your worth, but in withdrawing your energy. Yes, pulling back, not out of bitterness, not to punish anyone, but to reclaim your peace and protect your spirit. Because sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is walk away without a sound. Carl Jung believed that our psychic energy is limited. He called it libido, not just in the sexual sense, but in terms of life force. Every conversation, every favor, every moment of emotional support you give costs you a little of that energy. And just like with money, when you spend it recklessly on people who don't reciprocate, you go bankrupt, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. But when you start becoming aware of where your energy flows, when you stop giving it out freely just to feel needed or liked, something shifts. You stop surviving, you start thriving. Most people think that pulling away will make them look cold or selfish, but the opposite is true. Withdrawal doesn't destroy relationships, it reveals them. Because when you stop initiating, stop chasing, stop trying to constantly prove your worth, you finally get to see who makes the effort when you don't. That silence, that space, it's not empty, it's a mirror. And in that mirror, you'll see people for who they truly are. Those who only loved what you gave them, and those who loved you even in your stillness. Now let's be clear, withdrawing your energy doesn't mean becoming cold-hearted or distant from life. It's not about shutting everyone out. It's about choosing who and what is truly worth your time, your attention, and your inner light. Jung understood the necessity of detachment in the process of individuation, the journey of becoming your whole, authentic self. He knew that clinging to toxic dynamics or constantly overextending yourself keeps you trapped in a false identity, one built on pleasing, not on purpose. So, detachment isn't rejection, it's self-respect. You're not giving up on others. You're choosing yourself first, so you have something genuine to give, not just scraps from your exhaustion. In today's world, everyone is loud. Everyone is trying to be seen, to be heard, to be noticed. But Jung believed that true transformation doesn't happen in chaos. It happens in stillness. In the quiet moments of solitude, when you're no longer pouring into others, you begin to hear yourself, your thoughts, your buried desires, your suppressed dreams, and the silent parts of you that have been ignored for too long. Withdrawal allows you to reconnect with the core of your being. Here's the irony: the moment you stop giving yourself away freely, you start becoming more powerful. People begin to notice your absence. They feel the gap you used to fill, and many don't know how to handle it. Some will panic, some will try to guilt you, some will act as though you are the problem. But don't fall for it. They're not reacting to your absence. They're reacting to the realization that they never valued your presence. And that truth, it's not meant to hurt you, it's meant to liberate you. So when you feel the urge to explain yourself for pulling back, don't. You don't need to justify self-respect, you don't need permission to rest, you don't need validation to protect your energy. Carl Jung taught us that the path to wholeness always starts within. And sometimes, the most powerful decision you'll ever make is choosing not to be available for people who never deserved you in the first place. Because when you stop chasing, you start attracting. And when you stop pouring out your energy for everyone else, you finally begin to fill your own cup. So, what actually happens when you become less available? What happens when you stop being the first to text? When you stop answering every call? When you quietly pull your energy back from places where it was once overflowing? Everything changes, and not always in the way you expect. Because when you step away from the role you've been playing, you don't just disrupt the dynamic, you expose the truth behind it. The first thing that changes: people start revealing themselves. When you're always there, always helping, always saying, yes, people can hide their real intentions. They don't have to invest in you emotionally, they don't have to show effort, they just enjoy the benefits of your presence without ever earning it. But once you withdraw, they face a decision. Do they make the effort to keep you in their life, or do they let you slip away? And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Some will walk away, not because you did anything wrong, but because they were never truly connected to you. They were connected to what you gave them. Time, support, validation, energy, not your soul, not your essence. Carl Jung would call this a necessary purification, because what remains after you set boundaries is what's real. The second thing that happens: you begin to notice patterns you couldn't see before. That friend who always dumped their problems on you but never listened to yours? Gone. The partner who expected your loyalty but never offered emotional safety? Distant. The co-worker who leaned on you for everything but never once offered help? Silent. But here's the beauty. Some people will surprise you, some will reach out and ask if you're okay. They'll notice your absence, not with guilt tripping, but with genuine concern. They'll step up, they'll grow, they'll meet you where you are. And those people, they're your tribe, the ones worth holding on to. But perhaps the most important change happens inside you. When you stop running around, trying to hold everyone and everything together, you begin to feel your own center. You realize you don't need constant noise to feel alive. You don't need to be everyone's everything to matter. You don't need to explain your worth. And that realization, that's freedom. Carl Jung believed that our greatest journey is to the self, not the self we show the world, but the one buried beneath our people-pleasing, our fears, our guilt. When you become less available, you clear the path back to that self. You stop betraying your own needs to keep others comfortable. You stop confusing being loved with being useful, and you begin to trust your own silence more than their approval. Now here's the irony. The more you pull back, the more power you radiate. When you no longer chase love, respect, or attention, you start attracting people who give it freely. Why? Because you're no longer operating from lack. You're operating from wholeness. People can feel that. They sense the shift, and only those who are aligned with your frequency will stay. It's the law of resonance, something Jung deeply believed in. Your external world begins to reflect your internal state, and once your energy changes, so does everything around you. So, yes, when you become less available, people might leave. Some might criticize you, some might try to make you feel guilty for growing. Let them. Because what remains after you withdraw is what's meant to stay. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." When you finally stop chasing everyone else's approval, you wake up to your own. There's a moment in every person's life where they must decide, will I continue being what the world expects me to be, or will I finally become who I truly am? For Carl Jung, the answer was clear. The greatest purpose of life is not to please others, not to play roles, not to perform. It is to become whole. Not perfect, but whole. And the path to wholeness, it begins the day you stop giving yourself away to everything and everyone that asks for you. Jung believed that to become whole, we must face what he called the shadow. The rejected parts of ourselves we hide to be accepted. The anger we suppress, the exhaustion we ignore, the deep resentment we swallow every time we say yes when we really want to say no. You see, when you're constantly available to everyone else, you often neglect the one person who needs you the most. You. And in that neglect, a shadow forms. A version of you filled with quiet frustration. A version of you that longs to rest, to speak up, to be free. But you keep silencing it. Because you're afraid of disappointing others. Jung's message? Stop running from the shadow. Because the parts you've buried are not your weakness. They're your way back home. Carl Jung's ultimate teaching was the process of individuation, a lifelong journey of becoming your authentic self by integrating all your parts, the light and the dark, the strong and the fragile, the giver and the boundary setter. It's not a straight line, it's not easy, and it often begins when you feel lost, disconnected, even broken. But pulling away from the noise from people, from roles, from expectations, creates the silence necessary for you to hear your own soul again. That's why becoming less available is so powerful. It creates space. And in that space, you remember what you love. You reconnect with what energizes you. You heal the parts of you that were constantly overextending for others. You finally stop being just someone to others and start becoming someone to yourself. True, maturity isn't about keeping everyone happy. It's about choosing peace even if it means disappointing others. It's about saying, I don't need to prove my worth through overgiving. I don't need to explain myself every time I need rest. I am allowed to exist without being useful. When you reach this level of self-respect, something magical happens. You start showing up in relationships not out of fear of being abandoned, but from a place of strength. You no longer beg to be chosen. You choose yourself again and again. And from that place of inner wholeness, you attract people who love you not for what you do, but for who you are. Carl Jung said, I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become. And maybe that's the most powerful truth of all, when you stop being available for people who take without giving, when you reclaim your time, your energy, your peace. You begin choosing who you become every single day, and over time, that scattered, people-pleasing version of you begins to fade, replaced by someone whole, someone still, someone strong. And no, not everyone will understand your transformation. Not everyone will celebrate your boundaries, but the ones who matter will, and most importantly, you will.